First up, it's hard to believe, but we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of the zombie/comedy Zombieland, and it looks like a sequel may actually finally be happening. While being interviewed for their new film Deadpool 2, writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick were asked about a possible Zombieland 2 when they said the following: "We don't know what you get someone for their 10th anniversary, but it may be a Zombieland 2. The hope is that we're shooting that thing early in 2019 for an October 2019 release. With the original cast, by the way. We are sitting on information that we can't entirely share at this moment, but we can just say we think fans of Zombieland who have been hoping for a Zombieland 2, that we will grant their wish very, very soon." The original Zombieland came out on October 2nd, 2009 and made just over $102 million at the box office on a modest $23 million budget. This is another one of those I'll believe it when I see it kind of things, because it is coming up on 10 years. Like in 2019, it's going to be 10 years since Zombieland came out. And every year we've heard things about they're going to do a sequel. So-and-so says they're going to sequel. Oh, they've got a new writer for a sequel. Oh, they've not got a new director for a sequel. And it keeps coming, keeps going. Like just a number of months ago, Woody Harrelson even said, while doing a Q&A, said, "Oh, we're going to do one. We're going to do another Zombieland." And now we've got the writer saying we're even hoping to get things shooting like fairly soon for an October 2019 release with the original cast. That's the part that's got a lot of Zombieland fans excited, because the idea that they could do another Zombieland could happen, but there was always the possibility they could do with a whole new cast of characters. Them saying that our plans right now include having the original cast has got a lot of people very, very excited. Look, we are closer now to getting a Zombieland 2 than we ever have before, and here's hoping, fingers crossed, that it does happen. But again, I'm just kind of in a little bit of I'll believe when I see it, not just because we've heard a lot of things about a Zombieland 2 for 10 years, but a lot of films do this. Like a lot of films saying, "Oh, we're getting close, oh, we're getting close," and then it never really happens. So let's see how this transpires. Here's hoping it actually does get across that start line. Next up, it was revealed earlier this week that the ABC show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was getting picked up for a season 6, although the season length was being cut almost in half from a 22-episode order, which is what they normally have, to just a 13-episode order. Now comes news that the 6th season won't be airing until the summer of 2019, almost a full year from when the end of this season happens. One possible explanation for the long delay is that this release date puts it on air just after Avengers 4 has been in theaters. Avengers 4 releases on May 3rd, 2019. While the studio reps are denying it right now, I believe more and more that this 6th season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I never really thought it would be canceled this season, but the more stuff we hear getting reported, the more I'm kind of believing that the 6th season is going to be their final season. And although they're denying it right now, I think that's the plan. I mean, the very fact that they're cutting their seasons almost in half to just 13 episodes, and the fact that they seem to be, apparently at any rate, to be trying to place it right after Avengers 4 comes out in theaters, maybe even after Avengers 4 finishes its theatrical run, seems to suggest that they're trying to set up a finale. The fact that it's only 13 episodes kind of suggests, again, I'm just speculating here, but kind of suggests that they have their wrap-up story in mind, and it's a 13-episode story. Again, the network fell short of giving them a full episode or a full season order. That's always a bad sign. But who knows? If this is the end, and they're strategically planning it to come after Avengers 4, maybe they have a great plan for finishing strong. Look, everybody knows I have not been the biggest fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I've outright hated it at times. Sometimes it's just blah, but whatever. Here's hoping, fingers crossed, they have a great plan for season 6 and they can cross that finish line strong and maybe do have some strong tie-ins to Avengers 4 to give that extra little kick. We'll have to wait and see. Next up, with Solo: A Star Wars Story having now premiered to mostly positive reviews, some questions still linger about the behind-the-scenes drama that led to previous directors Lord and Miller being dismissed and the addition of Ron Howard as director. Co-star of the film and Game of Thrones actress Emilia Clarke was recently speaking about the situation with Variety, reporting the following. "He, Ron Howard, took us all in and listened to everyone," said Clarke, adding, "He took us from this kind of, 'what are we doing?' to a place of such ease and comfort and fun." Clarke didn't say what happened to lead to Lord and Miller's firing, but the duo's improvisation-heavy style was reportedly alienating some actors and led to clashes with Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy. She did allude to substantial reshoots, saying that her response when she'd revisit certain scenes was, "Yes, thank goodness." Solo: A Star Wars Story officially opens on May 25th. Look, it became no secret that Lord and Miller's approach to the film was rubbing some people the wrong way. Most notably was writer Lawrence Kasdan, the guy who wrote Empire Strikes Back. He wrote this thing for Solo. He was very passionate about doing one more Star Wars movie, and he wanted it to be a Han Solo movie. And then they had an agreement with Lord and Miller about how this film is supposed to go. Here's the script, yup. And apparently they were changing a hell of a lot of the film, and that made Lawrence Kasdan none too happy, completely understandably. Now, apparently, according to Emilia Clarke, a lot of the actors were feeling alienated as well. It's like, hey, we signed on for a certain film on this script and everything, and this is not what we signed up for. So apparently Emilia Clarke seems to be revealing there was a little bit more turmoil behind the scenes than just saying Kathleen Kennedy wasn't happy with what Lord Miller was doing. We know Lawrence Kasdan wasn't happy with what they're doing, and apparently a lot of the actors weren't happy either. It is kind of a mini miracle that Solo: A Star Wars Story, while not a perfect movie, and it's not going to end up in my top 5 favorite films of the year, it's a minor miracle that it ended up as fun and as entertaining as it did when you consider that like 80% of the movie was reportedly reshot, going from one director to another and completely changing gears halfway through to get back to that original script that Lawrence Kasdan had envisioned. It's kind of miraculous that the film turned out as polished as it did, notwithstanding a clunky beginning and kind of a clunky end at the same time. Still, it turned out to be a hell of a fun summer action adventure film, and I think most people are going to like it, and I'm glad Emilia Clarke enjoyed the new direction as well. Next up, you may remember back in 2013, Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger did this little prison break movie called Escape Plan. It came and went without much fanfare, but it did manage to make over $137 million with a modestly small budget. Never thought it would get a sequel though, but here it is as the first trailer for the Escape Plan 2 Hades has hit the web. Escape Plan 2 Hades features Stallone's return as engineer and security consultant Ray Breslin, who's made it his life's work to ensure that the toughest prisons in the world are locked so tight that no criminal can ever escape them. To do this, he embeds himself and his crack team of experts in the prison system itself, finds the weaknesses, then works to correct them. After a member of his team winds up in a high-tech prison known as Hades, where some of the world's most dangerous and most valuable prisoners are housed, Breslin is determined to get him out while he still can. Aside from Stallone in the film, the movie also stars Dave Bautista, Jamie King, and 50 Cent. The film goes straight to digital on June 29th. And look, the first Escape Plan was a movie that absolutely looked terrible, but it didn't actually end up being that bad. It was kind of harmless. Unfortunately, while it made over like $132 million, only like 20-something million of that came from the North American box office. Most of its money, like over $100 million of it, came from overseas markets, which is understandable when you got names like Stallone and Schwarzenegger, but it seemed like the North American audience really just didn't care, and it wasn't quite good enough to make them care either. But again, it wasn't a bad little film. I never thought in a million years that they would do a sequel to this thing. As a matter of fact, it was just like maybe 2 months ago, somebody asked on my show and they said, hey, John, do you think they'll ever do an Escape Plan 2? And I said, I don't think so. I mean, I can't see why they would. Like, it didn't make enough money to justify doing a sequel, and it certainly wasn't good enough to justify a sequel. So nah, I don't think they're going to make one. Only to then be reminded they had actually already wrapped shooting the Escape Plan 2. We're now editing it together and it was in post-production. So what the hell do I know? Look, what is interesting here is the addition of Dave Bautista, of course, red hot with his Avengers Infinity War and Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. And you got Jamie King in there. I really like Jamie King. So maybe there's an interesting movie here to be found. Again, it's going to have to improve over the last one to get anybody's attention. And I'm not surprised that it is going straight to digital, but I am still kind of surprised that it even got made at all. And finally, speaking of first trailers, the first trailer for the upcoming Mark Wahlberg action thriller Mile 22 has hit the web. The synopsis for the film reads like this. In this heart-racing action thriller, a CIA agent stationed in Indonesia is tasked with transporting an informant whose identity has been discovered from the center of the city to an awaiting getaway plane at an airport 22 miles away. While en route, they must battle corrupt police, criminal overlords, and heavily armed locals, all hell-bent on taking them out before they reach their plane. Mile 22 also stars The Walking Dead's Lauren Cohen, the legendary actor John Malkovich, and former MMA and now WWE star Ronda Rousey, who hopefully has as few speaking lines as possible. Mile 22 is set to hit theaters on August 3rd. When I first started watching the trailer to this, I thought, oh boy, another movie about a government agency that doesn't really exist that gets the tough work done. I mean, okay, we've seen that a million times before. But then it takes that trope and it kind of combines it with the raid a little bit. Like they've got to run this gauntlet now of all these people who are after them to kill them. So a little bit of a mixture of that classic trope with the raid kind of actioneering stuff. And you know what? You add Lauren Cohen in there, and I've liked a lot of Mark Wahlberg stuff, especially in the last couple of years. And this thing, the more and more I watch the trailer, I'm like, this thing actually feels like it could be a hell of a lot of fun. Like, nothing to be taken seriously at all. I mean, for God's sakes, Ronda Rousey's in it, so whatever. Again, hope she can pull off action. She can make action in a movie look fantastic. She just can't speak lines very well. So if they just have her doing a lot of action, that could work out well too. But I gotta admit, the trailer took me from being pretty skeptical to going, you know what? Yeah, sign me up for this. I'm curious to see this movie now. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed.